Let's talk about something called living buildings. First of all, we have these goals of being sustainable and we do what we can, but I'm sure you have probably thought about this, that almost no buildings are actually sustainable. If you think about how sustainability means able to persist on its own into the long-term future, and with all that implies, these points here, well, we don't have buildings that can do that. And we do have buildings that are less bad, but being less bad is not the same thing as being good, and it's not the same thing as being sustainable. So a group of architects and engineers in the Northwest got to thinking about this seriously. And you will remember that LEED certification is developed and coordinated by the U.S. Green Building Council, USGBC, and it has regional chapters. The Cascadia chapter is the chapter here in the Pacific Northwest. So it's kind of nice that it was here in the Northwest that various architects and other designers said, let's see what we can do to develop a system that moves beyond just LEED Platinum, beyond just checking the boxes and collecting the points, towards buildings and sites that are sustainable, that are not only less bad, but that are actually regenerative. And so they began thinking about this idea of what they call a living building, a building that generates its own energy with sunlight from the sky. It uses water that falls from the sky, and it treats its own water and doesn't release toxic water. It uses only non-toxic materials that come from nearby. It's healthy for the people who live there and work there, and it's healthy for its surroundings. And it's beautiful. The Living Building Challenge has a slightly different system than LEED. It has 20 prerequisites. It calls those imperatives. And it doesn't have optional points. They're all required. They're all prerequisites. And it divides these into 7 categories. Here they are, which it calls petals. Whoops. Then the Living Building Challenge has a red list, means stay away. These are materials that are toxic, and so they are not permitted in the building. And the building must be in operation for a whole year before you can apply for certification. So again, kind of like LEED 4.1, you can't just claim that it's a good building. You have to be able to prove it with data over operation over a period of a year. The Living Building Challenge uses a flower as its metaphor, and that's why those categories are called petals. Like a flower, it is rooted in the place where it is, and we talked about that earlier when we talked about buildings are spaces that tell you where you are. It gets all its energy from the sun, it gets all its water from the sky, it gets all its nutrients from the soil, just like a flower, and it's a system that contains other systems, and it's a thing of beauty. This is a project up in Portland. It's on hold right now. It was to have been a Living Building certified building. It was a joint project of Portland State University, the City of Portland, several local nonprofit organizations, some local neighborhood groups, and a bunch of other people. This is a series of systems from that Bullitt Center that we saw earlier, that Bullitt Center in Seattle, and it is certified living building. So this is a poster that shows you some of the systems it uses to achieve these various imperatives. It achieves net zero water, so it doesn't import more water than it uses. Some of its water comes from rainwater harvesting up on the roof, and there's a cistern, a storage tank in the basement. They make their water system visible because this is an important system and they want people to be able to see how it works. Then they also take their gray water, the water from sinks and so forth, and treat it on site and use that for things like toilet flushing and landscape irrigation. They do not generate any net waste. They do not bring in any net energy, so they generate all their own energy using wind and solar panels. This is a panel on the wall inside the building. This is a thing called a dashboard, and these are common in green buildings. You can find dashboards in the LCC downtown center as well. So this is where people who live and work in the building can get a lot of detail about how much energy and water and waste are they using or generating. And the Bullitt Center in Seattle is healthy for people. So not only does it give you fresh air and ways to get exercise, it's a thing of beauty. Later on at the end of the term, we're going to talk about a field of study called biophilic design, which also incorporates evidence-based design. And this building here is evidence-based and incorporates biophilic design, as is, by the way, Riverbend Hospital in Eugene. Again, here are the same sources you saw in the last lecture. Here's our book, here's the LEED website, and here's the Living Building Challenge website.